Thanks to Skillshare, the first 140 people to click the link in the description are going to get a head start on making their passion a full-time job. The title of The Fifth Beatle has been thrown around a lot over the years. People like original drummer Pete Best, manager Brian Epstein, or publicist Derek Taylor have all been given that honor, but I think nobody is as deserving of the title as George Martin. Martin was the producer, composer, and arranger for most of the Beatles' career, and his contributions are directly responsible for some of the band's most iconic songs. Let's take a closer look at how Martin helped define the sound of the biggest band of all time. George Martin's relationship with the Beatles started early. In 1962, he heard one of their demo tapes and arranged a meeting with the band. Though he thought they were, quote, rather unpromising, Martin took a flyer on the Beatles. After signing them, Martin actually convinced them to fire Pete Best in favor of Ringo Starr, making him directly responsible for one of the most iconic lineups in music history. While his production and arrangement helped the Beatles' early works reach soaring success, his influence became much more pronounced in 1965. That's when the Beatles released Yesterday, a song that Paul McCartney had been workshopping for several years. While McCartney did the heavy lifting on the song, it was Martin who pushed McCartney to include a string quartet, much to his protest. That made the song go from this,
"Suddenly there's a shadow hanging over me. I'm not half the man I used to be,"
to this.
"Suddenly I'm not half the man I used to be. There's a shadow hanging over me. Oh, yesterday."
That string band helped elevate the song to iconic status and set a precedent for the Beatles to explore strings further. They did just that a year later in Eleanor Rigby with another string quartet piece scored by Martin. This score, inspired by Bernard Herrmann's music for Psycho, quickly joined Yesterday as one of the most famous uses of strings in rock.
Lonely people, where do they all come from? All the lonely people, where do they all belong? Ah, look at all the lonely people.
Eleanor Rigby wasn't the only song on Revolver that owes its sound to Martin. He oversaw all kinds of studio experimentation on that album, including the backwards guitar solo of I'm Only Sleeping. He also used tape loops to create the hypnotic rhythms in Tomorrow Never Knows. As the Beatles' experimentation got more extreme, Martin's role became more and more pronounced. You can thank him for the psychedelic soundscapes on I Am the Walrus. Though Martin wasn't into that song at first, he spent weeks creating the song's stunning orchestral accompaniment.
Sitting in an English garden waiting for the sun. If the sun don't come, you get a tan from standing in the English rain. I am the Eggman. They are the Eggmen. I am the Walrus.
On Strawberry Fields Forever, Martin jumped through hoops to get the perfect sound for the Beatles. He created an orchestral piece that John Lennon approved at first, but then Lennon backtracked and decided he wanted to take with just the band. After hearing the band's take, Lennon decided he wanted the two combined. Unfortunately, they were in different tempos and keys. Luckily, Martin was able to work some studio wizardry, slowing down the tape on the orchestral version, which allowed the key to drop and match the band's take.
I'm going to Strawberry Fields. Nothing is real, and nothing to get hung about. Strawberry Fields forever.
Martin's orchestral work became a staple of some of the greatest psychedelic songs of an era. His fingerprints are all over Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. He created the Pablo Fanque-inspired circus music on Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. Sgt. Pepper's climactic finish would be lacking without Martin too. Originally, A Day in the Life was two different half-completed songs. The band was only able to smash them together with the help of Martin's studio experimentation and orchestration. He created the surreal swells that bridge the song from Lennon's section to McCartney's and back again. As the Beatles began to fight more, Martin took a step away for the White Album, but returned triumphantly on Abbey Road. He did a lot of things on that album, but one of the clearest is his orchestration on Here Comes the Sun.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, I say it's alright. Little darling.
He also played the ethereal harpsichord riff in Because. In my opinion, Martin's greatest accomplishment on Abbey Road is the medley. Alongside McCartney, Martin took a half dozen small songs and smashed them together seamlessly into some of the greatest moments ever recorded. Much of the structure and arrangement for this came courtesy of Martin, leaving one last mark on the Beatles' catalog before they broke up. George Martin is a musical titan and an essential part of what the Beatles were. From In My Life to Yellow Submarine to Rain, there are dozens more Martin masterpieces that I couldn't even get into this video. So without question, if anyone deserves the title of the fifth Beatle, it's George Martin. Thanks to Skillshare, the first 140 people to click on the link in the description are going to get a head start on making their passion a full-time job. Has all this talk of George Martin got you wondering what you could do behind a producer's booth? Well, Skillshare have got you covered. They've got all kinds of courses on music production and composition, including the basics of music producing. From Silence to Sound, we'll teach you about composing music for film scores if that's up your alley, and there's thousands more available on their database. Again, the first 140 people who sign up with the link below will get 2 months of learning free, and after that it's just $10 per month. Whether it's music, art, business, or science, Skillshare have got you covered. So go now and learn to do that one thing that you've always wanted to do.